The great hall of the High Council was cold. It was always cold. The people believed that warmth made the mind soft and the spirit weak. So the rulers of the empire conducted their business in chambers of polished black stone, where the air bit at exposed skin and breath came out in thin white clouds. Lyra stood at the center of this hall, her hands clasped before her, her silver eyes fixed on the floor. Around her sat the 12 members of the High Council, ancient and powerful figures who had guided the empire for centuries. At the head of the council sat her father, High Counselor. He had not looked at her once since she entered. "The terms have been agreed upon," spoke Elder, his voice echoing off the stone walls. "The humans have accepted our conditions. The treaty will bring an end to hostilities and establish trade routes between our territories." Lyra knew all of this already. The negotiations had been going on for nearly a year. What she did not know was why she had been summoned here, to stand before the full council like a criminal awaiting judgment. "However," Elder continued, "the humans have insisted upon one additional condition, an old tradition, one that our ancestors practiced to seal alliances between great houses." Lyra felt her stomach tighten. She knew of only one such tradition. "A bonding marriage," her father said. His voice was flat and cold like the stone beneath her feet. "The humans wish to seal this treaty with blood and bond. They have requested a daughter of the ruling house." The words hit Lyra like a physical blow. She looked up, her composure cracking for just a moment. "Father," she whispered. "You will not speak," he said, still not looking at her. "You will listen." Lyra closed her mouth. Her heart was pounding so hard she could hear it in her ears. "The human delegation has selected their representative," her father continued. "A male of their species, a former military officer who now serves as a diplomat. You will travel to the system in 30 cycles. There, aboard a neutral station, you will be bonded to this human according to our sacred rites. You will then accompany him to human territory where you will live as his wife." The hall was silent. Lyra could feel the eyes of every council member upon her, watching for her reaction. She was the daughter of the High Counselor. She had been raised to show no weakness, no fear, no emotion of any kind. But she was afraid, she was terrified. Humans, she was to marry a human. All her life, Lyra had been taught about the humans. They were monsters, her tutors had told her. Savage creatures from a savage world. They had crawled up from the mud of their primitive planet and spread across the stars like a disease. They conquered without mercy. They destroyed without remorse. Their males were especially dangerous, driven by violent instincts and a need to dominate everything around them. She had seen the propaganda hollows, images of human soldiers with cold, dead eyes, videos of human ships firing on outposts, stories of human cruelty that had given her nightmares as a child. And now she was to belong to one of them. "The council has made its decision," her father said. "You are dismissed." Lyra wanted to scream. She wanted to beg, to plead, to demand that they find another way, but she knew it would do no good. Her father had never cared about her feelings. To him, she was not a daughter. She was a tool, an asset to be used when the time was right. That time had come. She bowed low, as custom demanded, and turned to leave the hall. Her legs felt weak beneath her, but she forced herself to walk with dignity. She would not give them the satisfaction of seeing her break. It was only when she reached her private chambers that she allowed herself to fall apart. She collapsed onto her sleeping platform and pressed her face into the cold fabric. Her body shook with silent sobs. She had always known that her life was not her own. Daughters of the ruling house did not get to choose their paths. They served the empire in whatever way the empire required. But this was a death sentence wrapped in ceremonial robes. She thought of the stories she had heard about human males, how they treated their women as property, how they used violence to control and dominate, how they took what they wanted without asking. Her future husband would hurt her. She was certain of it. He would use her body and break her spirit, and no one would care because she would be his by law and by bond. She cried until she had no tears left. Later that night, her handmaiden, a young named Sira, came to help her prepare for sleep. "My lady," Sira said softly, "I have heard the news. I am so sorry." Lyra sat up and wiped her eyes. "It does not matter," she said, her voice hollow. "I have my duty." "But the humans," Sira whispered. "They are so dangerous, so cruel. I have heard terrible things about what they do to prisoners." "I know," Lyra said. "I have heard the same stories." Sira took her hand. "Perhaps the human will die before the ceremony. Perhaps his ship will be attacked by raiders. Perhaps something will happen to save you." Lyra managed a weak smile. "Perhaps, but I do not think fate will be so kind to me." She looked out the window at the stars. Somewhere out there, across the vast emptiness of space, was the human she was to marry. Was he looking at the same stars right now? Was he thinking about her? Was he pleased that he would soon have a bride to do with as he wished? She shuddered at the thought. On a world called Earth, in a city called Portland, Brooks received his own orders with a mixture of resignation and determination. He sat in the office of Admiral, reading the documents for the third time. Arranged marriage, noblewoman, permanent relocation to New Eden Colony. "You understand the importance of this assignment," Admiral said. She was a stern woman with gray hair and sharp eyes. "I do," replied. "This treaty could prevent a war that would cost millions of lives." "Exactly. They insisted on this arrangement. Apparently, it is an old tradition of theirs, a way to seal alliances." Nodded slowly. "And I was chosen because of my diplomatic experience." "Partly, you were also chosen because of your psychological profile. You are patient, calm, and adaptable. You have spent years studying culture. You are the best candidate we have." "Set down the documents. What do we know about the woman I am to marry?" "Her name is Lyra, daughter of High Counselor, 28 years old, highly educated, no military training." The Admiral paused. "She is almost certainly terrified of you." Looked up. "What do you mean?" "The government has spent decades feeding their people propaganda about us. They portray humans as violent savages, monsters. This woman has probably been raised on stories of human cruelty. She likely believes you will hurt her." Was quiet for a long moment. "That is not what I will do." "I know, that is why you were chosen." The Admiral stood and extended her hand. "Good luck. The future of two civilizations may depend on you." Shook her hand. "I will not let you down." That night sat alone in his apartment, thinking about the woman named Lyra. He tried to imagine what she must be feeling right now. Fear, probably. Anger. Despair. She was being forced to marry a stranger from a species she had been taught to hate and fear. He could not change the circumstances that had brought them together, but he could control how he treated her. He made a silent promise to himself. He would be patient. He would be kind. He would never force her to do anything she did not want to do. He would show her through his actions that not everything she had been taught about humans was true. It would not be easy. She would probably hate him at first. She might never accept him. But he would try, because that was what humans did. They tried to do the right thing even when it was hard. Across the galaxy, two people who had never met lay awake in the darkness, thinking about each other. One was filled with fear. The other was filled with determination. In 30 cycles, their lives would change forever. The Prime Station hung in the darkness of space like a metal flower. It was built by neither humans nor, but by the merchants of, a neutral species that profited from trade between all the great powers. This made it the perfect location for the ceremony that would bind two civilizations together. Lyra stood in the docking bay, watching through the window as her ship connected to the station. Her heart was beating fast. Her hands were cold. The traditional bonding gown she wore was heavy with silver thread and blue crystals, and it made her feel like she was wearing chains. "My lady," Sierra whispered beside her, "we have arrived." "I can see that," Lyra said. Her voice was steady, but inside she was screaming. The airlock opened with a hiss. Lyra stepped onto the station, followed by her small entourage, 2 guards, 1 handmaiden, 1 priest of the old faith who would perform the ceremony. Her father had not come. He had said his presence was not necessary. She had not expected him to come. He had already gotten what he wanted from her. A station attendant, a small creature with 4 arms and a face full of eyes, led them through gleaming corridors to the ceremonial chamber. The room was large and round, decorated with symbols from both and human cultures. Candles burned in silver holders. Flowers from a dozen worlds filled the air with strange scents. And there, standing on the far side of the room, was the human. Lyra stopped walking, her breath caught in her throat. He was tall, as she had expected. Humans were generally taller than. He had brown hair cut short and a face that was neither handsome nor ugly by her standards. Just different. Alien. But it was his eyes that surprised her. They were brown, warm like polished wood, and they held no cruelty, no hunger, no malice. He looked at her, and she saw something she did not expect. Kindness. That had to be a trick. Humans were masters of deception. Her tutors had taught her that. They smiled while they plotted. They spoke soft words while planning violence. She raised her chin and walked forward to meet her fate. Watched the woman approach, and he felt a deep sadness in his chest. She was beautiful in a way that was strange and striking. Her skin was a pale lavender, smooth as silk. Her hair was silver white and fell past her shoulders. Her eyes were like polished mirrors, reflecting the candlelight. And she was terrified. He could see it in the tension of her shoulders, the way her hands gripped the fabric of her gown, the careful blankness of her expression that was trying so hard to hide what she really felt. She expected him to be a monster. She was waiting for him to prove everything she had been taught. He would not. When she stopped before him, close enough to touch, bowed. It was a gesture of respect, one he had practiced many times. He saw surprise flicker across her face before she hid it. "I am Brooks," he said softly, speaking in her language. He had spent months learning it. "I know this is not what either of us would have chosen, but I want you to know that I will never hurt you. I will never force anything upon you. Whatever this marriage becomes, it will be on your terms." Lyra stared at him. She did not know what to say. This was not how the humans in the propaganda hollows spoke. They snarled and threatened. They did not bow. They did not speak of choice. "You lie," she whispered, so quietly that only he could hear. "All humans lie." Met her eyes. "I do not expect you to believe me, not yet, but I hope that time will prove me honest." Before she could respond, the priest of the old faith stepped forward and raised his hands. "Let us begin," he said. The ceremony was ancient and complex. Lyra had studied the rites since childhood, always assuming she would one day be bonded to a lord of high station. Never had she imagined standing here with a human, speaking the sacred words to an alien creature. Their wrists were bound together with ceremonial cord. The priest spoke the old words and they repeated them. Promises of loyalty, promises of partnership, promises that were supposed to last until death. When the final words were spoken, the priest declared them bonded. Husband and wife. Lyra felt nothing. No joy, no love. Only a cold emptiness where her future had once been. The small audience applauded politely. People smiled and nodded. Lyra's guard stood stiff and silent. Sierra wiped tears from her eyes. And then it was over. Ship, the Starward Hope, was waiting to take them to human territory. Lyra said goodbye to Sierra at the airlock. The handmaiden clung to her, weeping openly. "I will miss you, my lady," Sierra said. "Please stay safe, please remember us." "I will," Lyra said, but she did not feel the words. She felt like she was already dead, just a ghost going through the motions. She stepped onto the human ship. It was different from vessels, warmer. The lights were softer. The walls were painted in pleasant colors instead of cold gray. Humans moved through the corridors and they looked at her with curiosity but not hostility. A woman with dark skin and short hair approached them. She wore a uniform with marks of rank on the shoulders. "Welcome aboard, Lady Lyra," the woman said. "I am Commander Nora Bishop. I serve as first officer under Captain Brooks." She looked at and smiled. "Though I suppose I should say Captain and Diplomatic Liaison Brooks now." "Just as fine," he said. "Lyra, Commander Bishop is my trusted friend. If you ever need anything and cannot find me, she will help you." Lyra looked at the human woman. "You serve under a man." Commander Bishop laughed. It was a warm, genuine sound. "I serve under a captain. His being a man has nothing to do with it. On Earth, women hold every position that men do. We have had female presidents, generals, admirals. My own mother was a ship captain before me." This did not match what Lyra had been taught. In the propaganda, human women were shown as submissive creatures, controlled by their violent males. But this woman stood with confidence. She spoke with authority. She looked at as an equal, not a master. Another lie, another piece of propaganda that was falling apart. Showed Lyra to their quarters. The room was large by ship standards, with a sleeping area, a small sitting room, and a private bathroom. Windows looked out at the stars. "This is your space," said. "The sleeping quarters are yours. I will take the study next door. You will have complete privacy." Lyra turned to look at him. "You will not share my bed." "Not unless you want me to, and I do not expect that you will." He moved toward the door. "There is food in the storage unit. The entertainment system has been loaded with literature and music. If you need anything at all, there is a communication panel by the door." He paused at the threshold. "I know you are afraid of me. I know you have every reason to be based on what you have been told, but I am not what you were taught to fear. I hope that someday you will believe that." Then he left, closing the door gently behind him. Lyra stood alone in the quiet room. She looked at the comfortable furniture, the soft lighting, the stars wheeling slowly past the windows. She had expected to be thrown onto a bed and violated. She had expected violence and cruelty. She had prepared herself for the worst night of her life. Instead, her human husband had given her a room of her own and wished her good night. She did not understand. She walked to the window and pressed her hand against the cold glass. Out there somewhere was her people, everything she had ever known. And here she was on a human ship, married to a human man, traveling to human territory. She should sleep. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new fears, new confusion. But she could not stop thinking about the look in his eyes, that strange warmth, that unexpected gentleness. It had to be a trick, it had to be. But what if it was not? She lay down on the sleeping platform, still wearing her bonding gown. She was too tired to change, too overwhelmed to think clearly. As she closed her eyes, she made a decision. She would watch this human carefully. She would study him the way she had been taught to study enemies. She would find the truth behind his soft words and kind eyes. And when he finally showed his true nature, when the violence came out, she would be ready. She would not let him break her. She would survive. In the study next door, sat in darkness, looking at the same stars. He thought about the fear in his wife's eyes, the distrust, the certainty that he would hurt her. He had a long road ahead of him. Weeks, maybe months, of patient kindness. Small gestures that might be rejected or misunderstood. Endless opportunities to prove her prejudices right with a single wrong word or action. But he would not give up. Because somewhere beneath that fear, beneath that careful mask, was a person. A woman who had been used as a political pawn, a prisoner of her own culture's lies. He would set her free. Not through force, not through demand. Through choice. He closed his eyes and let sleep take him. Tomorrow, the real work would begin. 3 weeks passed aboard the Starward Hope. 3 weeks of confusion, 3 weeks of watching, 3 weeks of waiting for the monster to reveal himself. But the monster never came. Every morning would knock gently on her door and invite her to breakfast in the ship's common room. He never demanded. He never insisted. If she said no, he simply nodded and left food outside her door. At first, she refused every invitation. She stayed in her quarters, alone with her thoughts and her fears. She ate the food he left because she had to survive, but she would not give him the satisfaction of her company. Then slowly, curiosity began to replace fear. On the 4th day, she followed him to breakfast. The common room was full of humans, crew members eating their morning meal, laughing and talking with each other. They looked up when she entered, and for a moment she tensed, expecting hostility. Instead, they smiled. "Good morning, Lady Lyra," a young officer said. "Welcome, please sit wherever you like." No kneeling. No formal titles repeated in reverent tones, just a casual greeting as if she were one of them. Pulled out a chair for her and she sat carefully, watching everything. The humans talked about their work, their families, their plans for when they reached New Eden. They made jokes that she did not understand and laughed at things that seemed strange to her. But they were not cruel, they were not violent, they were just people living their lives. Commander Bishop sat across from Lyra and offered her a cup of something hot and dark. "Coffee," Bishop explained. "It is a human drink, bitter, but it helps you wake up in the morning." Lyra took a small sip. It was very bitter but not unpleasant. "Thank you," she said quietly. Bishop smiled. "You know, you do not have to be afraid of us. I know what your people were told about humans. Most of it is not true." "Then what is true?" Lyra asked. Bishop thought for a moment. "We are complicated. Like any species, I suppose. We have done terrible things throughout our history. Wars, slavery, cruelty of every kind. But we have also fought to overcome those things. We have laws now that protect people. We believe that every person has rights that cannot be taken away." "Every person?" Lyra asked. "Even women, even the conquered?" "Everyone," Bishop said firmly. "That is what we believe, even if we do not always live up to it. The goal is to try, to be better than we were yesterday." Lyra looked across the table at. He was talking with another officer about navigation routes, completely ordinary. He did not look like a monster, he looked like a man. But she had been taught that appearances could deceive. Over the following days, Lyra began to explore the ship, gave her complete freedom to go wherever she wished. No guards followed her. No doors were locked against her. She visited the medical bay, where a kind doctor named Grace showed her the tools they used to heal the sick. She visited the engine room, where technicians explained how the ship moved faster than light. She visited the recreation deck, where crew members exercised and played games. Everywhere she went, humans treated her with respect and curiosity. They asked about her world, her culture, her life before the marriage. They shared their own stories in return. None of them seemed to hate her. None of them looked at her with the cold hunger she had expected from human males. One evening found her in the observation deck, staring out at the stars. "May I join you?" he asked. She nodded, and he sat beside her, keeping a respectful distance between them. "You seem troubled," he said. Lyra was quiet for a long moment. Then she spoke, her voice soft. "Everything I was taught about your species is wrong. I am beginning to see that now, but I do not understand why. Why would my own people lie to me?" Consider the question carefully. Fear is a powerful tool. If a government wants its people to support a war, it helps to make the enemy seem evil. Monsters are easier to hate than people. So we were being prepared for war against you. Perhaps, or perhaps your leaders simply wanted to keep your people from asking too many questions. If humans are monsters, then no one wonders if maybe humans have good ideas that should consider. Lyra thought about this. It made a terrible kind of sense. What ideas? She asked. Turned to look at her. Ideas about freedom, about individual rights, about the belief that no one should be forced to do something against their will, not even for the good of society. That sounds like chaos, Lyra said. Sometimes it is, admitted. Democracy is messy. Freedom is complicated. People make bad choices sometimes. But we believe it is better to let people choose for themselves, even if they choose wrong, than to have someone else decide for them. Lyra felt something stir in her chest, a strange feeling she could not name. I was never given a choice, she said. About anything, my education, my training, my marriage, it was all decided for me. I know, said gently, and I am sorry for that. You did not make those decisions. No, but I benefited from them. I have a wife because your freedom was taken away. That is not something I can ignore. Lyra looked at him with new eyes. This was not the logic of a conqueror. A conqueror would simply take what was given and feel no guilt. Why do you care about my freedom? She asked. I am already yours. The bond cannot be broken. Shook his head. You are not mine. You are your own person. The bond may be legal, but I do not believe anyone can truly belong to someone else, not in the way that matters. Lyra felt tears prick at her eyes. She did not know why. These were just words. Words could be lies. But something in her heart was beginning to believe that meant every word he said. That night she could not sleep. She lay in her quarters, thinking about everything she had learned. The humans were not monsters. They were people with strange beliefs and warm hearts. They valued freedom in a way that seemed almost radical. And her husband, the man she had been taught to fear, was perhaps the kindest person she had ever met. She remembered something he had said on their wedding night, that whatever their marriage became, it would be on her terms. She had not believed him then, but now, after weeks of gentle patience, she was beginning to understand. He was giving her something no one had ever given her before, the right to choose. The next morning, she went to breakfast without being invited. She sat next to and shared coffee with Commander Bishop. She listened to the humans talk and laugh, and for the first time, she allowed herself to smile. Noticed, he did not say anything, but she saw the warmth in his eyes. Later that day, she asked him to show her human music. They sat together in the common room while he played songs from Earth. Some were fast and exciting. Some were slow and sad. One song about a man who lost his home but found peace in a new land made her eyes fill with tears. "This is beautiful," she whispered. "Music is one of our greatest gifts," said. "Every human culture has its own songs. We use them to express things that words alone cannot say." Lyra listened to more songs. She learned about human art and literature. She read stories about heroes who fought for freedom and lovers who crossed impossible distances to be together. And with each passing day, the fear in her heart grew smaller. She was beginning to see that the universe was not what she had been taught. There was kindness here among these strange alien creatures. There was beauty and hope. And there was a man who asked for nothing from her, yet gave her everything she had never known she needed. She was not ready to love him, not yet, perhaps not ever. But she was ready to trust him. And that, she realized, was a beginning. A week later, the starward Hope came out of faster-than-light travel and approached the planet called New Eden. Through the window, Lyra saw a world of green forests and blue oceans. It looked peaceful. It looked beautiful. It looked like a place where she might find a new life. Came to stand beside her. "Welcome to New Eden," he said, "our new home." Lyra looked at the planet, then at the man beside her. For the first time since the wedding, she did not feel afraid. "It is beautiful," she said. "I hope you will be happy here," replied. Lyra did not know if she would be happy. Happiness was something she had never been allowed to expect. but for the first time in her life, she felt something close to hope. "Perhaps I will be," she said, "perhaps." And she meant it. New Eden was nothing like the human worlds Lyra had imagined. In the propaganda hollows, human colonies were shown as ugly places, dirty cities full of crime and poverty, factories belching poison into gray skies, starving masses begging for food while cruel overlords lived in luxury. But New Eden was beautiful. Their home sat on the edge of a small town called Riverside. It was a simple house by the standards of nobility, just 2 levels with a garden around it. But it was warm and comfortable, filled with soft furniture and large windows that looked out at the forest. Showed her every room, the kitchen where they would prepare meals, the living space where they could read or watch entertainment, the study where he would work on diplomatic matters, and a bedroom that was hers alone. "I will take the smaller room upstairs," he said. "This one has the best view of the sunrise." Lyra touched the soft blankets on the bed. "You continue to give me the best of everything. Why?" Smiled, "Because you deserve it, and because I want you to feel at home here." Home? The word felt strange to her. She had never really had a home. The great halls of her father's estate had been cold and formal, a place of duty rather than comfort. But this little house with its warm colors and soft lights felt different. It felt like a place where she could breathe. In the days that followed, encouraged her to explore the colony. At first, she was nervous. She was an alien among humans. Surely they would stare at her, mock her, treat her as an outsider. But the people of Riverside welcomed her with open arms. The baker, a large man named Henry, gave her fresh bread and asked about cooking. The teacher at the local school, a young woman named, invited her to speak to the children about her. The farmers who worked the fields waved at her as she passed, their faces friendly and curious. No one knelt to her. No one called her lady or mistress. They simply treated her as a neighbor, another person living in their community. It was strange and wonderful and terrifying all at once. One afternoon, Lyra sat in the town square, watching humans go about their daily lives. Old couples walked hand in hand. Children played games in the grass. Workers rested on benches, eating their midday meals. A young human woman sat down beside her. She had red hair and freckles scattered across her nose. "You are Lyra, yes?" the woman asked. "Captain Brooks's wife." "I am," Lyra said carefully. "I am Sophie. I work at the medical center." Sophie smiled warmly. "I just wanted to say welcome. It must be strange being so far from your own people." "It is," Lyra admitted, "very strange. If you ever need anything or just want someone to talk to, I am usually at the medical center during the day. We could have lunch sometime." Lyra was surprised by the offer. "You would want to spend time with me, even though I am." Sophie laughed. "Why would that matter? You seem nice. That is all that counts." She stood and brushed off her clothing. "Think about it. The invitation is open." Then she walked away, leaving Lyra alone with her thoughts. That evening, Lyra asked about the war. The real war, not the version she had been told. They sat together in the living room. Rain fell gently outside the windows, pattering against the glass. "Tell me the truth," Lyra said. "What really happened between our peoples?" Was quiet for a moment. "Are you certain you want to know? Some truths are painful." "I need to know. I need to understand." So told her. He explained that the first contact between humans and had been peaceful. Trade agreements were made. Ambassadors exchanged. For several years, the two civilizations had existed in cautious friendship. Then the military began to expand. They pushed into neutral territory, claiming systems that had belonged to no one. When their expansion brought them to the edge of human space, conflict became inevitable. "The first attack came from forces," said. "A human mining station in the Gamma sector, 300 workers killed. We had no warning." Lyra felt sick. I was told humans attacked first, that you destroyed a research outpost without provocation. That research outpost was a military base, said, and it was destroyed in retaliation for the mining station attack. Both things happened, but one came before the other. Lyra pressed her hands against her eyes. Why would my people lie about this? Because it is easier to justify violence against monsters than against equals. If humans struck first, then were innocent victims defending themselves. The truth is messier. Both sides did terrible things, but the conflict was started by your military leadership, not by us. Lyra thought about her father, the High Counselor, a man she had been taught to respect and obey. Had he known the truth? Had he helped create the lies? Of course he had. He was at the center of everything. I want to see the records, she said, the human records of the war. I can arrange that, said. But Lyra, why does this matter so much to you? She looked at him with eyes that burned with new fire. Because I have believed lies my entire life. I need to know what is real. I need to build my understanding of the universe on truth, not propaganda. Nodded slowly. Then I will help you find the truth, whatever it is. Over the following weeks, Lyra buried herself in research. She read human news archives. She watched recordings of the war from the human perspective. She studied diplomatic communications that had been after the peace treaty. What she found made her anger grow. The Empire had not been defending itself. It had been conquering. System after system had fallen to forces before humans even knew there was a war. Thousands of innocent people had died, not human soldiers but civilians, colonists, families. And her father had been one of the architects of this campaign. One night Lyra received a message. It came through secure diplomatic channels, encrypted and private. It was from her father. She opened it with trembling hands. The message was cold and formal. The High Counselor demanded a status report. He wanted to know what Lyra had learned about human military capabilities. He reminded her of her duty to the Empire. He expected intelligence that could be used in future conflicts. He had sent her to marry not just to seal a treaty, but to spy. Lyra sat in the darkness of her room for a long time, staring at the words on the screen. Her father had always used her. She had known this. But seeing it spelled out so clearly, the naked expectation that she would betray the man who had shown her nothing but kindness, filled her with a cold rage. She thought about what she should do. She could lie, send false information, keep her father satisfied while protecting her new home. She could say nothing, ignore the message, let her father wonder. Or she could tell the truth. The next morning, she found him in the garden, tending to the flowers he had planted. I need to tell you something, she said, something that may change how you see me. Set down his tools and gave her his full attention. Tell me. So she told him everything, the message from her father, the expectation that she would spy, the fact that this had probably been the plan from the beginning. When she finished, was silent for a long moment. I suspected something like this, he finally said. The government is not known for trust. It made sense that they would use you as an asset. You knew, Lyra felt a flash of hurt. Why did you not say anything? Because I hoped that if you saw who we really are, you would choose differently. He met her eyes. And if you had not, if you had decided to spy for your father, what would you have done? His face was calm but sad. I would have been disappointed, but I still would not have caged you. You have to be free to make the wrong choice, or freedom means nothing. Lyra stared at him. This man was offering her something no one had ever offered: complete trust, complete freedom, even the freedom to betray him. And in that moment, she knew what she had to do. I will not spy for my father, she said. I will not help the Empire harm these people. This is my home now. These are my people. Reached out and took her hand. It was the first time she had allowed him to touch her since the binding ceremony. "Thank you," he said quietly, "for trusting me with this." Lyra felt tears running down her cheeks. "Thank you for showing me what trust really means." They stood together in the garden, hand in hand, as the sun rose over New Eden. A choice had been made, and everything was about to change. Lyra spent 3 days composing her response to her father. She wrote it and deleted it a dozen times. She tried to be diplomatic. She tried to be gentle. She tried to find words that would soften the blow of what she was about to do. In the end, she settled on the truth. She told her father that she would not spy for him. She told him that she had learned the real history of the war, and that she knew the Empire had been the aggressor. She told him that the humans were not the monsters she had been taught to fear. She told him that she was staying on New Eden because she chose to stay, not because of duty, not because of the treaty, because this was her home now. And she told him goodbye. She sent the message before she could change her mind. For 2 days there was no response. Lyra tried to go about her normal routine, exploring the town, talking with her new neighbors, helping in the garden. But the silence weighed on her like a stone. On the 3rd day, the response came. It was not a private message. It was a public declaration, broadcast on all official channels. By order of the High Council, Lyra was declared a traitor to the Empire. She was stripped of her family name. Her titles were revoked. Her citizenship was. Any who offered her aid or comfort would face punishment. She was disowned completely. Found her sitting in the living room, staring at the wall. Her face was blank, but tears streamed down her cheeks. "Lyra," he said softly, sitting beside her, "I am so sorry." She shook her head slowly. "I knew this would happen. I knew he would never forgive me for choosing myself over the Empire." She wiped her eyes. "But knowing and feeling are different things." "He is a fool," said. "He had a daughter who was brave and good and true, and he threw her away because she would not be his puppet." Lyra looked at him. "Is that what you see when you look at me, someone brave?" "Yes," said without hesitation. "It takes courage to question everything you were taught. It takes even more courage to act on what you learn. You walked away from your entire world because you believed it was right. That is not weakness. That is strength." Something shifted in Lyra's chest. A weight she had been carrying for as long as she could remember began to lift. She was no longer Lyra, daughter of the High Counselor tool of the Empire. That person was gone, erased by her father's declaration. But in her place stood someone new, someone she did not yet fully know. She reached out and took his hand. "Thank you," she said, "for everything, for your patience, for your kindness, for giving me the space to find my own truth." Squeezed her hand gently. "That is what you deserved, what everyone deserves." In the days that followed, Lyra was surprised to find that she did not feel as empty as she had expected. Losing her family name, her titles, her place in society should have been devastating. Instead, she felt free. The people of Riverside gathered around her. They brought food and flowers and words of comfort. Sophie from the medical center sat with her for hours, listening to her talk about her and her complicated feelings about leaving it behind. From the school invited her to help teach the children about culture, the real culture, not the military propaganda. She was not alone. She had a community now, a family of choice rather than blood. And she had. One evening they walked together through the forest near their home. The trees were tall and ancient, their leaves rustling in the gentle wind. Small creatures sang in the branches. The air smelled of earth and growing things. "I have been thinking," Lyra said, "about us, about this marriage." Glanced at her. "What about it?" "When we were first bonded, I was a prisoner. I had no choice in the matter. The marriage was forced upon me." She stopped walking and turned to face him. "But I am not a prisoner anymore. I am free, and I want to make a choice." Waited, his brown eyes patient and warm. "I choose to stay," Lyra said. Not because of the treaty, not because I have nowhere else to go. I choose to stay because I want to, because this place is my home, because these people are my family." She took a deep breath. "Because you are my husband and I want to be your wife." For a moment just looked at her. Then a smile spread across his face, brighter than she had ever seen. "Are you certain?" he asked. "This has to be your decision, completely free." "I am certain," she said. "I choose you, Brooks. I choose this life. I choose freedom." He stepped forward and wrapped his arms around her. She had never been held like this before. In culture, physical affection was rare and formal, but this embrace was warm and safe, like coming home after a long journey. "I choose you too," he whispered. "I chose you the moment I learned about you, alone and afraid, being sent to marry a monster. I wanted to show you that not everything you feared was real." Lyra pulled back enough to look at his face. "You succeeded. You showed me more than that. You showed me that kindness is stronger than cruelty, that freedom is more valuable than power, that love can grow in the strangest places." She stretched up and kissed him gently. It was their first real kiss. Not the formal touch of lips during the bonding ceremony, but something true, something chosen. When they parted, Lyra was smiling through her tears. "I love you," she said. The words came out easily, naturally, as if she had been waiting her whole life to say them. "I love you too," replied. "I have loved you for a long time." They stood together in the forest as the sun began to set, painting the sky in shades of gold and purple. The stars were starting to appear, tiny points of light scattered across the darkness. Lyra looked up at them and thought about how different they seemed now. When she had left, the stars had represented loss and fear, a vast emptiness where she would be forever alone. But now the stars were beautiful, full of possibility, full of futures she could not yet imagine. She was no longer a princess of a dying empire. She was no longer a pawn in political games. She was not a spy, not a traitor, not a tool. She was Lyra, just Lyra, a woman who had crossed the stars to find her freedom and found it in the most unexpected place. In the arms of a human who had shown her that true strength was not in domination, but in letting others be free. Months later, Lyra spoke to a gathering in the town square. Other refugees from the Empire had begun to arrive on New Eden, seeking a new life away from the cold grip of the High Council. They came in secret, on cargo ships and smuggler vessels, drawn by stories of a place where humans lived together in peace. Lyra stood before them, no longer afraid, no longer hiding. "I know what you were taught," she said. "I was taught the same things, that humans were monsters, that freedom was chaos, that your only value was your service to the Empire." She looked out at the crowd, at the lavender faces watching her with hope and uncertainty. "Those were lies, all of it. I have lived among humans for almost a year now, and I have learned the truth. They are not perfect. No species is, but they believe in something powerful. They believe that every person matters, that every person deserves to choose their own path." She felt his presence behind her, steady and strong. "I came here as a prisoner," Lyra continued. "I was forced into a marriage I did not want, to a man I was taught to fear. But he set me free, not by releasing me from the bond, by giving me the space to discover who I really was, by treating me with kindness and respect, even when I gave him only suspicion and fear." She smiled, and her eyes filled with tears. "That is what humanity gave me, freedom, true freedom, the right to choose my own life, and I choose to be here. I choose to help others find what I found." The crowd erupted in applause, and humans together, celebrating not a victory of one species over another, but a victory of compassion over fear. That night, Lyra and sat together on the porch of their home, watching the stars. "You did well today," said. "You gave them hope." "They gave me hope first," Lyra replied. "All of you did, this whole world did." She leaned her head against his shoulder and closed her eyes. "I was so afraid of you," she murmured. I was certain you would hurt me, that all humans would hurt me." "And now?" asked. Lyra smiled. "Now I know the truth. The greatest strength is not in conquering others, it is in setting them free." She opened her eyes and looked up at the stars one more time. Somewhere out there, her father sat in his cold council chamber, plotting wars and counting assets. He had thrown away his daughter because she refused to be a tool. He did not know what he had lost. But Lyra knew what she had found. A home, a family, a love that asked for nothing and gave everything. And a freedom that would last for the rest of her life.